A city of climate and sunsets, community and character, agriculture and industry, growth and tradition. This is Casa Grande. In the 100 years since its incorporation, Casa Grande has offered a vibrant community for residents to work, live, and play. The year of 2015 was no exception. We continued to invest in key infrastructure that supports expansion, drives economic development, and creates jobs. While embracing our growth, Casa Grande also works to preserve its unique history and rural character. Our city has proven to be a desirable location for commercial and industrial commerce, in addition to a thriving downtown that boasts an array of locally owned businesses, restaurants, and community events for the entire family. In 2015, this included a 100-year celebration that commemorated the anniversary of the city's incorporation. City leaders worked diligently to create a culture of fiscal responsibility, maintaining a total fund balance of $29 million in 2015, as well as a AA bond rating. We consistently offer the lowest property tax rate among our surrounding communities, and saw an increase of over $1 million in sales tax revenue due to an expanded retail base and substantial increase in construction sales tax. Safety is paramount in ensuring our residents feel secure in their neighborhoods and homes. Our fire and police departments continue to selflessly serve our constituency, responding to over 30,000 combined public safety calls for service. We recognize the importance of activity and recreation, as seen by the ongoing enhancements to our parks, pool, golf course, mountain trails, and recreational facilities. In 2015, we delivered over 19,000 home-delivered meals and had 300,000 patrons visit our libraries. We also continue to maintain our designations as both a playful and tree city. 2015 was a year of collaboration. The city continued its meaningful partnerships with numerous organizations to host special events, preserve history and traditions, and offer valuable resources that support and engage our residents. These partnerships also serve as a tool to foster community participation, encourage volunteerism, and promote civic engagement at all levels. Together, these characteristics not only define the community of Casa Grande, but they drive our momentum. A momentum that will allow us to forge a future where our city and our residents continue to thrive. This is Casa Grande.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming today. Always an honor to be able to do this, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Kayla for putting the video together, and Stephen for the voiceover. I thought they did a great job. I was lucky enough to be able to look at it a couple of days ago because Kayla was nervous, and I thought really did a good job of capturing what our community is all about. So great job, Kayla. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Remy Miller and her staff. They're the ones that make all the arrangements for the lunch, and I'm sure, as all of you know, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. So certainly would like to thank you, Remy, and your staff for all of the help and getting it all organized for me. Would like to take a minute to introduce both our current city council and our past city council. Current council, we have Mayor Pro Tem Carl Montoya, Councilman Dick Powell, Councilwoman Mary Kortson, Councilman Matt Herman, Councilwoman Lisa Fitzgibbons, and Councilman Ralph Varela. We do have two former council people with us today, Mr. Jim Norris and Mr. Kirk McCarville. I know there's a number of other elected officials. Oh, I'm sorry, and Steve Miller. I'm sorry, Steve. I know that there are a number of other elected officials in the room, and since I don't have a list, if we could just have you all stand and be recognized, I would appreciate it. This is the 9th one of these that I've done, and it's also the last one that I'll do. So oh, come on now. So we were lucky enough to get our whole family together for the event. So I'm going to introduce my family, even though I usually don't do that. My lovely wife, Judy. Yeah, stand up. She hates to stand up, so. Our daughter, Kristen Frank. Our son, Anthony Castillo. And his girlfriend, Cora Bowser. Our son, Matt Jackson, and his wife, Katrina. My mother-in-law, Tony Lerona Carlson. And my sister-in-law, Rosemary Mitchell. You know, I think everybody knows this, but I always like to say it because it's very true. I think anytime you do something in a big organization, it is a team effort. And being in city government is no different. I think we've got a great city council, a great city manager, a great senior executive staff, and all of our staff members. I get more compliments from about all of our employees, I think, than any other mayor in Arizona, because you guys really care about what you do, and you do a great job at it. And I also think I speak on behalf of the entire council when I say that you make our job much easier because of your dedication. So thank you all. I also think that we've been real fortunate over my 9 years that we've got a city council that's very cohesive. I think we try to be progressive, forward-looking, and at the same time, we're very fiscally conservative with how we spend the taxpayer dollars. Since this is the last one of these I'm going to do, I thought we'd take a little walk back in time. Go back to 2007 and think about what Casa Grande looked like at the time. You know, we had local economy was humming along. We're doing about 2,500 dwelling units a year in new construction. That's a little over 200 a month. We haven't done 200 in a year for the last 5 years. We also had well, of course, the economy kind of tanked in 2007 and 8, but during that 9-year period of time, even in spite of the recession that we went through, we had several things that we accomplished. 9 years ago, we didn't have a mall here. Didn't have Fry's Marketplace. Didn't have Sam's Club. Casa Grande Regional Medical Center became Banner Casa Grande, and if anybody for a minute doesn't realize the significance of that change, you should. Casa Grande, and I don't think I'm telling secrets I'm not giving away secrets when I say this, because I think Ronna Curfew was very open and honest about it. The hospital was in significant financial trouble, and Banner Casa Grande came in, and today we have a whole new group of specialists. There are very few things now that you can't have taken care of in the medical field here in Casa Grande. So a very significant merger happened. Also, we've got a lot of new industries since '07. Erman Dairy next door came in about 2 years ago. Franklin Food on the other side. Tractor Supply Distribution Center, which is south of here a little bit. There's a company called Sheffield Oil, which are the oil tanks that are south of here as well. We also saw a whole series of expansions, and keep in mind, 5 of these years were during a significant economic downturn. We saw Frito-Lay do their net zero expansion, and for those of you that don't know what that is, they wanted a zero carbon footprint. So they invested a tremendous amount of money to essentially pull themselves off of the grid, and they've done a great job of that. Along with that did come some minor expansions as well. Hexcel across the street from the property expanded. ACO Polymer out in our airport industrial park expanded. National Vitamin, a couple of doors down from the property, opened their doors about the time that the economy went south. A lot of new commercial space as well. Holiday Inn Express wasn't here 7 years ago. Legacy Suites, which is now the Siegel Select Suites, wasn't here. Oasis Pavilions, the acute care facility out on Rodeo Road, wasn't here. We've also had multiple restaurants that have been built in that time frame as well. The city, I think, really wanted to take advantage of timing during that economic downturn, and we did a lot of projects as well. And I think that because of the time that we picked, we got good value for the projects we went out to bid with and built. And so I made kind of a partial list because I'm going to talk in more depth about a couple of these in a minute. Wastewater treatment plant expansion. If we had not done that, we would not have some of these new industries we have here today, because that is always one of the first questions we ask. That was, at the time, the largest public works project we've ever undertaken in the city of Casa Grande. Vista Grande Library, we expanded to a second library. We remodeled the existing library, the downtown branch. We widened Cottonwood Lane. If you were here at the time, you remember Cottonwood Lane was 2 lanes east of Pier Road. We built a municipal court building. We built a public safety building. We built Fire Station 504, the one out on McCartney Road. We've remodeled the dispatch center. We've built a sewer interceptor down Burris Road, which is what serves Erman Dairy, Franklin Foods, and Tractor Supply. We also put sewer lines to the Erman Dairy Franklin facility, as well as a new sewer line for Tractor Supply as well. We've installed solar panels in many of the city buildings. And when we did that, like most of those solar projects, you do it so that you will never have to worry about increases in your power bill. We are finding that we're 5 to 7% ahead of where we expected to be with those solar conversions. And kind of the side benefit to that, I think, is that we all get covered parking. Also installed LED lights at the airport, and I mention this because we were the first airport in Arizona to have LED lights. So if you're driving down Pinal at night, you look at the lights, they're nice and bright. Again, first in Arizona. We constructed 15 miles of trails and 2 trailheads up on Casa Grande Mountain, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later as well. We built the Casa Grande Performance Institute. We did a downtown street project. We also did several studies. We did a general plan update. We did a study called Life on Main, which was to look at how we could redevelop that area south of the railroad tracks, south of downtown. We completed a study on the Courtson Road interchange on I-10. And that's important because as we start developing the east side of I-10, we want to make sure that we've got adequate transportation facilities in and out of there. We've done a study on what's called the East-West Expressway. It's a new road that will go from I-10 out to Montgomery Road. Our population grew to over 50,000 people. So we're now considered a metropolitan area by federal standards. So we created what's called the Sun Corridor Metropolitan Planning Organization. And what that did is it allowed us to become what's known as an entitlement city for community development block grants. So we increased our allocation of CDBG money from about $125,000 to about $350,000. We joined the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And I think we've also maintained our membership with Access Arizona because this city council is absolutely committed to bringing new jobs into our community. We've improved the website and our social media presence, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Richard Rosales as kind of the starter of a lot of that. I know when I first became mayor, and it's only because of the timing that was involved in having somebody like Richie on the staff, we had virtually no electronic footprint at all. today. We've got a great website. We're on Facebook, Twitter. There is a new app you can get from the police department that will give you alerts on things that are going on in the public safety arena. If you don't have the app, you can do a search on Apple, what do they call it? Apple apps, or Google, just do Casa Grande Police Department. You can load it on your phone, and it's a great opportunity to kind of keep up with what's going on in the public safety arena. We started televising our council meetings. Again, part of that is timing, but we had always talked about doing that, and about 3 years ago we started televising council meetings. And I think that's important because it allows the public the opportunity at pretty much any time they want, because you can get them online as well, to see what's going on in your city government. We also privatized our golf course. When I came into office 9 years ago, and I'm, again, I don't want to misconstrue that I'm taking credit for any of this. It's just right time, right place. We were subsidizing the golf course to the tune of almost $400,000 a year. Last year, we turned a profit. Granted, not much of a profit, but we turned it around from a $400,000 subsidy to about a $10,000 annual profit by privatizing. Our approach to dealing with economic changes really included several things. I know when we'd always tried to keep a fund balance that was equal to 6 months worth of our expenses. That's about $20 million. That helped us increase our bond rating from a B to a AA. And what that means in layman's terms is it's like your house payment. We went from an interest rate of 7% on your house to 4.5%. So the annual cost to repay those bonds has gone down significantly. When I came in, shortly after I came into office, our fund balance had grown to $30 million. We hit the recession and went down to about 20 at one point. I'm happy to say that as we stand here today, it's just under $30 million again. We also tightened our belts, didn't fill vacant positions, reassigned certain people that looked like they could be reassigned to other jobs. We did not lay anybody off. We did not cut hours like a lot of our neighboring cities did. And I think, again, that's because of the strong fiscal management. We need to be mindful that we don't want to get behind where the market is. So I think that one of the things we need to look at in the upcoming year is making sure that our salary and benefit packages are competitive with the marketplace. We've got great people. We don't want to lose them because somebody else has got better benefits or better salaries. Public safety pension plan. I know many of you that I've talked to over the last year or so are aware of this problem, but in Arizona, each public safety entity, be it fire or police, has their own actuarial table and their own little mini retirement program. So every city has a different liability for that because it's been underfunded for several years. We talked about the challenge of making $1,000 a month and spending $1,500 a month. That's exactly what's happened, is that the income going in has not matched the outgoing going out. So the state legislature has decided that we need to make up that deficit. In Casa Grande, our deficit is almost $35 million. And it is a function of the age of your public safety employees, how many retirees you have. We do have a plan to fix it, and we are working towards solving that deficit problem, but it is something moving forward that I think we need to continue to be concerned about. Talk briefly about our replacement fund. We need to be concerned about that. We need to make sure that we stay competitive with the pricing of new equipment so that we don't get behind. Something like a police car lasts about 3 years, so that's pretty easy. Something like a garbage truck may last 7, 8, or 9, and that cost differential creeps up. We need to make sure that we are feeding that equipment replacement fund sufficiently so that we can continue to buy equipment before it wears out, as opposed to having it wear out and then finding out we don't have the money to pay for it. We also have concerns, and I say this again every year, with state and federal legislation, because there's like a pecking order where, at the top of the pyramid is, depends on which way you look at it, I guess, but at the top of the pyramid is the federal government, then the state government, and then local governments. And so we find ourselves in a situation frequently where the state legislature is doing things that affect our ability to do the services that we provide to the public. The biggest one of those right now is highway user revenue funds. And I know I talked about this last year, that it's a flat tax on your gas. I think in Arizona it's 19 cents a gallon. And everybody, when it was $4 a gallon, everybody was saying, well, why don't you peg it to the cost of gas? Well, today I drove by Safeway, it's $1.35 over there. So if you keyed it to the price of gas, we wouldn't be getting 19 cents. But it is a problem because over the last 5 or 6 years, the state has taken money out of that HERF funding to pay for DPS, and it's affected us in Casa Grande about $1 million a year. So that means your road network is going to not be able to be kept at the standard that we've become used to. We recently completed a study that is out for public hearing right now through the Sun Corridor MPO, and again, I don't mean to offend people when I say this, but I was so impressed by the number I wanted to quote it today. They did a pavement rating system for Casa Grande, Coolidge, and Eloy, and the categories were poor, very poor, good, very good, and excellent. In Casa Grande, 82% of the streets were rated as excellent, very good, or good. And that, again, is a tribute to our ability to stretch every dollar we have to the maximum ability possible. Comparison, and it's public information, so you can go look at the study. Eloy had a 22.5% of their streets rated as excellent, good, or very good, and Coolidge had 11.3%. And I've always said part of our charge, I think, is economic development. You drive into a town, if the roads look good, you think, well, the town must be well run. And I'm not saying anything at all about our neighbors, but I think that's one of the reasons why we are so lucky with a lot of the economic development successes that we've had, is that we present ourselves very well, as seen by 82% of the people that think that the roads are good, very good, or excellent. And I'd be the first one to tell you, I can go show you roads right now that don't fall into those categories. But if you think about the roads you drive on all the time, they are all in pretty good shape. A couple of other things that the state legislature's toying with right now. One of them is a bill to allow guns in public buildings. And I know my wife Judy worries about this all the time, that if you've been in City Hall, we have like zero security in there. And so what the law says is that you can now bring guns into public places, as in City Hall, unless the government entity wants to put in a security system. So you think about the number of buildings, even City Hall by itself, we have 3 main entrances. So you're going to have 3 security gates like you go through at the airport and 3 security guards. But let's talk about the other buildings, park and rec buildings, libraries. We probably own 35 or 40 buildings, and if you're going to put in a security system and a security guard, probably going to cost the city of Casa Grande a couple $1 million, and the alternative is to just let people come in with guns. I'm sorry, I just don't think that that's good public policy, but as it stands today, that legislation looks like it's probably going to pass. The other one that is not a big hit for Casa Grande, but it is a hit for some of the other cities, is we talked about the various kinds of sales tax. One of the taxes we collect is on rental income. We get about $200,000 a year, and the state legislature has a bill that will eliminate rental sales tax in cities. So if you're in a city that has a high percentage of rentals, like the city of Phoenix, that's a huge financial hit, and there's not a way to make that up, because you can't raise property taxes, you really can't raise sales taxes, so you essentially take that as a budget cut. I think one of the issues we're going to have to address is online shopping. I online shop just like probably everybody else in here does. But the fact of the matter is, online shopping does not pay local sales tax. And I know you talk to some of the small merchants here in town, they'll get somebody to come and look at an expensive piece of equipment. They'll say, oh yeah, I touch it, feel it, I like it, and then they'll go buy it online so they avoid the sales tax. That same business owner is a guy who gets called when Little League needs a sponsor, or the Cesar Chavez dinner needs a sponsor for scholarships. And I think moving forward, we need to get a handle on internet sales. And I don't know the answer, but I think that's something that future councils are going to have to work on. Talked a little bit about the construction of the Casa Grande Performance Institute, and I will talk about that a little bit more later. Certainly, there are some economic issues out there we need to address. I think that's something else we're going to have to be working on over the next 12 months. Water, you know, there's so much information and misinformation about water in Pinal County and Casa Grande. I do think that we do need to start paying more attention to that, and I'm hopeful that as a new council comes on board, that will become a priority for them. As we're doing all those things, though, we really can't lose sight of the quality of life issues that Casa Grande has. And typically what happens in government is you kind of plug the thing that's screaming the loudest, and so quality of life things are the things that are last on the list. As we go out and prospect for economic development newcomers into the area, quality of life issues are one of the top things they look at. So we really can't ignore that as we move forward. But the pressure is going to be there to spend that money someplace else. I think that we want to maintain, and I've said this many times, Casa Grande is a great place to live. We need to maintain that sense of community here. And I think one way you do that is to be able to live, work, and play in the same spot. And I did my time commuting to another city. It was always really hard to decide whether I was going to spend my leisure hours where I lived or where I worked. We have a unique situation here where we have a fairly robust job market, so we can do live, work, play in one location. I think moving forward, one of the things that we are all going to have to look at in this room is the millennial workforce. I know we've had this discussion many times in City Hall, and you know, I'm a baby boomer. I'm sure they thought the same thing about me when I was 20-something years old, that what are we going to do about the baby boomers? It's a different work ethic. It's a different work mindset. I know we had some discussions. We recently implemented a paid time off plan instead of the traditional sick leave, vacation leave. Very strongly supported by millennials, not so much the baby boomers. But it's one of those transitions that we all need to make, and I think going forward, the city of Casa Grande needs to get ahead of that. Because if we don't, we have an aging workforce, and we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we don't have people to fill those jobs. And it's not just us. Everybody has the problem, so we have to make ourselves more attractive than our competition. I'm going to run through some kind of current projects that we've got on the books, and then I'm going to finish talking about 3 or 4 that are kind of, in my mind, are those projects that 20 years from now I hope people look back on and say, boy, these guys had a lot of foresight. Current projects going on. There's a project called the Caliche Assisted Living Facility. It's on the northeast corner of Peart Road and Cottonwood. It is a senior assisted living facility. They will have adult daycare in there as well. There will be provisions for people with Alzheimer's and dementia as well, kind of recognizing caregivers. It's that big building going up 2 stories on that corner. Boston Pizza, which is the new restaurant that's next to the Holiday Inn Express, they're scheduled to open in mid-April. We also are seeing a little bit of a boom in the housing market, and it's really centered around 2 builders, Meritage Homes, primarily over in the Mission Royale area, and D.R. Horton, who has home building going on in several different locations. We are also seeing a lot of the what we call ghost subdivisions that were built. The infrastructure was put in place and then abandoned. We're starting to see those lots being picked up by home builders. So I believe over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see a huge increase in home building again. I hope for the sake of the city that it doesn't get back to the 2,400 a year level because it's just unmanageable. But it would be nice to get it up in the 500, 600, 700 level. Going to be a new Circle K store on the corner of Potty Bomb and Florence Boulevard. And people say, well, what about that one just down the street? That is rented space for Circle K. It is one of the busiest Circle K stores in the Circle K family. But they can't, it doesn't fit the new mold, so they're going to move that store down to the corner of Potty Bomb and Florence Boulevard. There's a second assisted living facility being built. They've graded the lot. They've been going through some planning issues. It's on the southeast corner of Rodeo and Treckle, and it will be much like the Caliche development, targeted at seniors, so that you can be an active senior up to the point where you need full-time care and never have to leave that particular subdivision. You know, one of the big projects, and certainly the one I get the most questions about, is Phoenix Mart. And I really debated how to address this one because there's so much misinformation out there. We have had recent conversations with them. They did provide me some guidance as to what they would like me to say about it. But at the end of the day, I thought, I can only tell you what I know. Here's what I know. We issued a permit for them. The footings and grading is essentially done. There's, I think, 850 footings out there. We have issued them a foundation permit to do the slab and the utilities under the slab. And that's a big deal because the building's almost 2 million square feet. I was talking to our planning director yesterday. We have a final plan submittal on the building. I think it's our third or fourth review on that. We are prepared to, by the end of this week, we should be prepared for them to come in and pick that up. And assuming there aren't any changes in that plan, then they could start building the next week if they wanted to. Now, we are meeting with them week after next, and they tell us it's good news, so we'll find out more about it, but I can only tell you what I really know. So I do think that we're going to see them move forward in the next few months, and I will only say that it's a very challenging project. It had no infrastructure. It's a big project. It's one that there's only 2 of in the world. Any number of issues that have just made it take longer than any of us wanted, but I am hopeful that we'll see it start back up again and reach completion in the next few months. Some of the city projects we've completed in the past year. We've renovated the Dorothy Powell Senior Center. Primarily the kitchen area. We run a Meals on Wheels and senior meals program out of there, and the kitchen was just too small. We've expanded the Animal Care and Adoption Center. We had a limited space for the animals we pick up, and we were able to expand that through the generosity of a grant from the Indian gaming revenue. We have a new project we're working on that the engineer and me is pretty excited about. It's called Influx. It's a project that's being proposed just north of our wastewater treatment plant, and it is essentially a giant greenhouse that grows local produce, uses effluent from our treatment plant, and generates electricity. We're in the early stages of that discussion, but I really hope that we can get that wrapped up in the next few months. We have another similar kind of a project. It's called Waste Empowered, and it's south of us next to the Tractor Supply facility. And it is a company that will take all of the city's solid waste and reduce it about 75 to 80% of what it is today. We're excited about that because our landfill is running out of room, and I don't think anybody wants to have to site a new landfill. It will extend the life of our landfill probably 50 or 60 years. And I talked early on about how I hope 20 years from now people look back at my time as mayor and say, gee, they had some really good things. I look back at the guys that were in the council seats in the 1940s and 50s that sited that landfill out there, and were smart enough to make it big enough that we've had it out there for 65 years and we still have 20 years of life in it. So if we can extend that further, good for us. We have a sewer project that will punch a sewer interceptor under I-10 and serve the whole east side of the freeway, including the Phoenix Mart project. And that's important because that is our primary growth area moving forward. We need to have sewer out there. We do have some new signals that were put in over the last year, one at McCartney and Casa Grande Avenue. And if any of you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and tried to get out of there when school was over, that light has been a godsend. We also put one at Florence Boulevard and Palm Center, which is, again, if you've ever tried to get out of Cottonwood Clinic's driveway and turn left, that also has been a huge help. We're in the process of putting body cameras on our police officers, and you know, it's a sad state of affairs when we have to say that we need to do that, but I think everybody is, again, I'm speaking, I believe, for the majority of the council. We all recognize that body cams are just a fact of life today. We've done a lot of research on what's out there for body cams. We think we've picked the right one, so we will start equipping our officers with body cams. We also are in the process in the police department of replacing our computer-aided dispatch system. It's 20 years old, and as I was thinking about that this morning, we all have cell phones. Think about what your cell phone looked like 20 years ago. You imagine what our dispatch system must look like that's 20 years old. That is a process that's going to take about a year to do. We did pay for that out of our fund balance, so it will be a cash transaction. Memory serves me correctly, it's about $1.5 million. We are working on converting all of our street lights in town to LED lights, and while the council has had some early study sessions on that issue, I understand we will see that probably in final form in the next 60 days or so. What that does is more energy efficient and gives better light, much like those of us that are old and understand that when they went from mercury vapor to high pressure sodium, that's the difference you're going to see with LED lights. We believe we can do that without having to cost the taxpayer anything, just in the savings, monthly savings of the cost of the lights. We also want to give you just some general facts and figures from some of the services we provide. And they were kind of, as I ran through them before I started this, they just jumped out at me, the number. Library visits. You know, we're a town of 50,000 people. We have 2 libraries. I had no idea how many library visits we have. 311,000 in a year. Meals on Wheels. I talked about Dorothy Powell Center, and you know, if we're not already old, we may have parents or grandparents that are no longer able to get out and about. We delivered almost 20,000 Meals on Wheels last year, and many times that is the only social contact that people that are homebound have. It's a great program. It's a partnership program. By expanding the kitchen, hopefully we can get to more people because there's more demand than we have ability to serve. Talked a little bit about garbage and how we hope that this project will increase the life of our expectancy of our landfill. We collected over 18,000 tons of garbage last year. So every time you walk out to the garbage can, think about that. You're contributing to that 20,000. We had over 23,000 service calls in our police department. And again, shows you just how busy the city is. You know, when I was elected 9 years ago, there were a few things that I really felt that we needed to work on, and I've touched on some of those today, but I think the 3 that I really think hit home with me as I was looking back at that stuff over the last couple of weeks: improving relationships with our neighboring cities, reinforcing the sense of community that we have, and assuring that Casa Grande was a good place to live, work, and play. And I think that really encompasses 3 sub-elements, one being good infrastructure, one being quality of life, and the third one is getting the word out about why Casa Grande is such a great place to live. And so, as I was reflecting back on where we are today and where we were in 2007, I want to talk a little bit about all 3 of those. On the infrastructure front, I think the single most important thing we did was expand our wastewater treatment plant. We did it at a time the economy was not very good, so we got huge bang for our buck. We had originally felt we couldn't build all we wanted to do, and we had $60 million to do it. We were able to do everything we wanted to do, plus some other things for a little over $50 million, just because of the timing. Double the capacity of the plant, and as I said earlier, we would not have seen Franklin Foods, Erman Dairy, or Tractor Supply had we not gone ahead and expanded that wastewater plant. Moving forward, again, one of the first questions site selectors ask: what are your utilities like? You know, how big's your treatment plant? How much capacity do you have? What's your quality of life? You know, one of my favorite projects as mayor has been the Casa Grande Mountain Project. And I say that, and those of you that have been here more than a year or two have heard me say this before. Here is a project that has built 15 miles of trails and 2 trailheads that has cost the city taxpayers nothing. We did that with volunteers. We were lucky enough to have a series of AmeriCorps volunteers come in and build trail for us. And it is a great amenity. If you've not been out there, there are very few places in town where you can go up 200 feet and see the valley. Great vistas, hiking trails for all kinds of hikers and ages. And I do think that that is one of those iconic projects that moving forward people will look at and say, wow, wasn't that cool that they had enough foresight to build the trails and keep them maintained and buy the mountain. The third one that I want to talk a little bit on quality of life, oh, and just again, a little shout out, I know she's not here, but that trail system was really a vision of Mary Johnson's, and she's our retired community services director. And I think if it had not been for her perseverance, we never would have started with the original set of volunteers out there. And I think it's a tribute to who we are as a community that we can go do something of that magnitude at no cost. The other quality of life project I want to talk briefly about is the Casa Grande Performance Institute. And I know there's been a lot of stuff recently written about it. Some is true, some is not. But let's talk about the reality of the time that we built that. We at the time were looking for youth fields. And we were looking at different pieces of property that the city of Casa Grande owned. And we have a robust soccer football program, youth soccer football program in town. And we'd run out of field space for them. Francisco Grande came to us and they said, look, we have an idea of a public-private partnership where if you help us build this facility, we will maintain that facility. So as we sit here today, we have 8 soccer football fields for youth programs out there that are the best in the state of Arizona. And if you talk to people who are in the soccer, have kids that play soccer that have been here to play, they will tell you that these are the best fields they've ever played on. We don't pay a dime for that maintenance. And if we were to maintain them ourselves like we do Paul Mason Sports Complex, we believe that cost would be somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000 a year. There are some other benefits that we've seen from that, and I think if many of you may not know, but we have Major League Soccer teams out there that do their version of the Cactus League spring training every year. It's really put us on the soccer map. We are not a soccer state, so we don't see much of that. But when the Seattle Sounders used to come down here to practice, people, our winter visitors from Seattle would get on the internet to find out what the practice schedule was in the Seattle newspaper so they could go out and watch them. We have college scouts here all the time. We have ESPN soccer here all the time. We have international soccer leaders here in town, all of which help bring a focus on who Casa Grande is. Has it performed the way that we really wanted it to? No, it hasn't. But I don't think that it's the white elephant that so many people have made it out to be, because again, we run youth programs out there that we don't pay a dime for the maintenance. So in my mind, we were going to build the fields anyway. We just built them out there. Somebody else is maintaining them at a savings to the city of somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000 a year. I know there's been a lot of talk about the fledgling football league that was out there when we first started. We knew that they weren't going to last, or I won't say we knew. We were pretty sure they weren't going to last. And so when we initially looked at them, we had only programmed revenue from them for 3 years. They were there for a year and then they left. I do think that things are getting better out there. I do know that you're going to see some announcements hopefully in the next few weeks that will, again, bring light to the fact that that is a great facility. It's brought a lot of attention to the city of Casa Grande that we would not otherwise have gotten. And again, it's really helped in our economic development, not to mention the increase we've seen in our room tax revenue. 9 years ago, we were getting about $80,000 a year in room tax. Today, we're almost $500,000. And it's not because we've added a bunch of hotels, it's because they're much fuller than they used to be. My third thing that I really wanted to do when I got elected was to try to improve our relations with our neighbors and to get the word out about who Casa Grande is. And we now have bi-monthly mayor meetings with Mayor of Marana, Maricopa, Coolidge, Eloy, and Florence, and myself. And it's really a time where we just sit and essentially talk about whatever's on our mind. There's no agenda. But it's amazing the commonality of issues we have. The benefit that that's brought is that if one of us has a problem with somebody else, I can call up the mayor of Maricopa and say, hey, Christian, what's going on? And he can do the same thing. And it's really paid tremendous benefits for the area. And what encourages me about that is that I went from being Byron Jackson, who at the time was the mayor of Eloy, he and I started it 9 years ago. Today, I'm the only mayor that's still there that was there when we started. But the group that is there today have committed to keeping that bi-monthly meeting going. We've also, as I said, we've joined GPEC, which has really helped us get our word out about Casa Grande up in the Phoenix metro area. And I think that we all have different feelings about Phoenix metro area. The reality is that's where the money is. We need to have them come down and look at what's here in Casa Grande that we have to offer. We also are part of what's called JPAC, which is the Joint Planning Authority Committee, and it is for the megapolitan area of Phoenix to Nogales. We meet quarterly and talk about issues that will help us compete in that global economy as a megapolitan area. Again, we're members of Access Arizona and Central Arizona Council of Governments. Kind of the next steps, I've outlined most of them. I think we need to talk about the CGPI. We did approve moving forward with design on the community center Monday night. We need to be working on the next generation of infrastructure projects because I think what helped us the last 9 years was being ready. We need to be ready for the next go around. We need to worry about the mall. We've seen 2 major tenants out there close in the last year in Target and Sports Authority. And again, that goes back to this online shopping issue. We need to help figure out what we can do as a city to help that mall thrive. We've got economic development always on our list. We have the only rail-served industrial area in Arizona. It's that area south of us where Tractor Supply is. We need to continue to market that. We're seeing growing pressure to have a transit system here in town. And I think that while we would all love to see that happen, they are very expensive, and we need to make sure that we have proper revenue to be able to continue operating it. We need to work on widening I-10, and while we've seen projects at the I-8, I-10 intersection moved up on the list, we've seen the Picacho area moved up on the list, there's no activity on that stretch through the Indian community, and we really need to work on that. We need to work on the Corson Road interchange because if we're going to open up that east side of the freeway, that's what's going to help us do that. We need to have sewer service over there. There's an environmental impact statement going on for the proposed I-11 corridor. We need to be very active in making sure that they bring I-11 through Casa Grande in the area that we want them to bring it. Workforce development, always a problem, and I think if economic developers come to town, unfairly, I believe, but we get criticized about our workforce, so we need to make sure that we're ever vigilant about making sure we have the best qualified workforce we can possibly have. We need to continue development of the trail system up on CG Mountain. It's thousands of acres up there. We need to make sure that we build it out to the best of our ability. And I think we need to start looking at we have a regional trail system here in town. We need to start working on implementing that as well. So I've talked a little longer than I wanted to, but that seems to happen every year. I will just want to make one quick acknowledgement and then I'll wrap it up. Mr. Thompson over here is retiring in August, so he's a big part of why we are where we are. My final comment is, thank you for letting me be the mayor for 9 years. I hope that it's a better place than it was 7 years ago. And I hope 50 years from now people look back and say, boy, those guys were smart. So thank you all for coming.